Welcome everyone to Behind Closed Doors. I have the pleasure of sitting with Mark Verzyl today. And as you guys know, the reason for the podcast is social media paints an amazing picture of every entrepreneur that I've had the pleasure of meeting in my lifespan. And I'm sure you guys have, of, how prestigious their life is currently. And we never get to take that deep dive into how long it took them to get there, the winding roads, the mountains that they've had to climb, the challenges that they faced physically, mentally, families affected. We've never had to look at that. But in order to make it as a great entrepreneur, as a leader in this business or any business for that matter, it comes with a past. And today we have Mark with us, dear friend of mine, who is going to share his path on how he got to where he is today. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm still thinking about the name, the title, Behind Closed Doors. So I'm just curious how this is gonna go. And yeah, that's almost like clickbait. People will be like, "Ooh, I want to see this."
Yeah, I want to see this. I want to see where that goes. And it came to mind, Mark, because really no one knows what's behind there. The only thing that they see is what this is. They see us smiling every day, leading.
This pretty face.
Exactly. Giving us that, on stage, you're phenomenal. You're phenomenal with the agents that you lead, with the organization that you have. And no one knows really where Mark came from. And that's where I would like to start. What did you do before you decided to get into real estate? How did that come about and why you made your decision to come into real estate?
I think it's sales has always been in my blood. It just made more sense to me, and it came from I'm sure everybody knows Earl's Restaurants. And when I was going to college, I started working at Earl's, and they found out I had a little bit of cooking background. So I was cooking breakfast and stuff when I was in high school, just making some extra money. And so they wanted me to work in the kitchen, and so I was doing that while I was in college. And I distinctly remember, and I'll never forget this. It was just fun and games, like working there, and we were just joking around all the time. And I remember looking at the guy that was flipping burgers, and I literally was like, "Hey, just made $7." And then an hour later, I said, "Hey, I just made another $7." And he's looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" And so it's $7 an hour, and I was, kind of going, $7 And then when I realized that, I love that. How about that?
I know. What did you do? I'm just looking. I'm like, what did you do?
I don't know how to turn that off. It's like this brand new Mac I have, so I just go with it. Watch this. I think I'll get a thumbs up now. It's pretty cool. Yep, there it is. Sometimes balloons will fall. So anyways, I haven't figured out how to get rid of that. But when I discovered that, sales, you can make as much as you want, I was hooked. I was just like literally, I don't have to go buy a business. I can work from whatever I'm doing, whatever interests me and excites me, and make as much money as I want, or as I can physically. And I'm not really trading time for money anymore. So that's really where I got going. And before I got into real estate, I thought I was too young when I was in my early 20s. And so I left it for a while. So anybody that's out there and you're like 19 or 20 or 21, you're excited about real estate, just do it. Just dive into it. Don't do like I did. I didn't start until I was about 29. And that's when I got in. But I had a lot of this sales experience before that. I would recommend getting some sales experience first. But I ran a telemarketing office. I did some sales for some other companies, like here and there and that. But the telemarketing thing, business to business, was kind of the longest thing I did before I got into I was going to say EXP, but into real estate, actually. So, and when I made this switch into real estate, it was new homes first. And I was going to get my real estate license in Alberta. You don't need it to be in, to work for a builder. Yeah. It was the builder. Actually, I went for an interview, and then I decided after the interview that I wasn't gonna go into new homes. I was just gonna get licensed and do my thing. And he talked me into it.
Would you say it was the interview with the builder that was that switch on for you to get into real estate, period?
No, I think it was a series of things. It was like I had decided at that point I was going to get into real estate one way or the other. And I met somebody at our Lamaze class that was doing really funny guy named Paul King. And he was in new homes. Yeah. And he kept telling me, he's like, you should be in new homes. You should be in new homes. You'd be great at this. And I kept hearing it from different avenues. So finally I made that switch and I started working for a builder. Now I had decided I wasn't going to work for him. And then he called me about a month later and he said, no, I think this would be really good for you. You really need to come on. And I said, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And I spent 3 years with that company. So
that's amazing. So for the audience that's, thinking, here's Mark getting into real estate. You're 29 years old. After a month of getting into real estate, a builder is calling you and, seeing you on stages and the way you lead your organization and how successful you've been as a real estate agent. It was an easy climb for you. However, it could not have been. So talk to us about what took you from starting to where you are now and that road. And, were there times where you just absolutely wanted to give up?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because I'm like the 25-year overnight success, it's, it's funny because once you climb to that level. And I think I mentioned this, on stage at our rally. It was so hard to get from one spot to this, what looked like Mount Everest, this climb. And it looked like it was endless. And, you look up and all you see is the clouds, you don't see the top and it's a blizzard up there. And you're like, how does anybody ever get there? And then when you get there and you look down, it's like standing on an anthill. Yeah. And you're like, how did I not understand this before? Yeah. And how did I not see the recipe and how to get there? And it's a really funny thing because so many spots along the way, whether it's a client that just tears you one and makes you feel like you're the worst person that's ever lived, and you've done them injustices and you've done horrible things to them and whatever for something minor. It's not even that big a deal. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure no one's ever had that happen before. Maybe I'm number one. I don't know. And
all the time.
And or along the way, working wherever you're working at or whatever, somebody who does not want to see you grow or get better, and they try to belittle you and humiliate you. I mean, this has been my life. It's always been a grind. There was just never an easy. It never came easy. I always had to grind it out. And there was times when, in the last few years, when like 2018, and I'm sure you've heard the story a couple times. In 2018, I had a terrible time. Like I had death around me. There was my business partner who I was just really jumping in with. And I thought, well, I saw a big future with us working together. Same weekend, that a friend of mine took his life. Brad was in the hospital dying of a brain bleed. I'm taking pharmaceuticals that the doctor, was trying to get me to take for 3 years, and I kept putting it off. And then they didn't tell me it was going to mess with my head and put me into a depression. And then all this happened at once. It was like the success gods were like, let's see how worthy you are if we're going to elevate you to the next game. If you can pass this, we'll let you into the club or something, right? It's just amazing. You don't see it coming. And so when I got through that and finally decided I had to decide that I had to make the change.
Mhm.
And I made that decision one day. I think I decided it a couple times, but there was a day that I just went, enough's enough. And it's time to get back on the saddle. And then things slowly got better. And I think that year I probably did about 18 deals, which may sound like a lot to someone who's, brand new in the industry. It was
Someone that
really
doesn't know
probably,
your production, yeah, it sounds,
yeah,
yeah,
but I spent probably 150,000 more than I made, right? Like,
right,
so
right.
it was a really, really trying year. My poor wife, her, she's a doll.
She really
And
is.
she didn't know what to do with me anymore. And but anyways,
Some days she probably still doesn't, Mark, but that's
oh, absolutely. That's another whole side story.
but
But
going through that, like going through that grind that you were talking about, climbing that mountain and facing all these obstacles along the way, what kept driving you? Why didn't you just give up and go to something easy? Why were you just continuously climbing and not looking back down?
well, and that's just it. What's your why? So do you want this to be your legacy and the end of everything? Do you want to be just known for that person that just gave up? And you've got two choices. You're gonna work and you're gonna put so many hours into that work. So why don't you make it the most effective as possible and make that journey as good as you can possibly make it? Because it's if we just keep looking to that success, like that moment that I'm going to break through success and like it's just going to be glory and life is going to be just amazing when you get there, and that it's really not as big a deal as you
Mhm.
think. It's the journey along the way. And as cliche and maybe you think that's stupid, it's not. It's like, how do you treat people, and how are you
I truly believe
how
that.
much time and work do you put in, and how many people can you help along the way? And if you when I was working at a show home, I knew the real goal is money and to make as much as I can, right? And
Mhm.
it's X amount of dollars to break that $1 million barrier in a year. But if you think about that every day, you will screw your own success up, because you may feel like unconsciously you don't deserve it, or whatever you're telling yourself in your head, right? Whatever your self-talk is. But so I changed that, and I'm working at the show homes, and my goal long-term was to beat everybody in the city and be the number one guy. And it took a long time to get there. But instead of thinking about the monetary aspect of it, I know I'm making X amount of dollars. It was just get more red dots, which meant sold, on the map than any
Yeah.
of the other builders. That was my goal. And if I could just do that, then I knew, and then it was like substantially more. And then in a month it was this many more, right? Like, so, and once in a while you lose the battle, but you win the war. Kind of deal.
Absolutely. So you climbed that mountain, you reached your success. 2008 hits. Was it 2008 2018?
2018. For me, it was
2018.
2018. Yeah.
Right. So 2018 hits. Now you're struggling. You've already made that success. You've already made that legacy. Why did you decide, or how did you decide that I need to pull out of it a second time around when you've already made the success? What kept you going the second time? Because I always find defeat the first time hurts, the second time hurts even more and more, right?
Well, and here's the thing, and it's because I've made a couple of pivots in my life. And most of the time the pivots have always worked out really
Mhm.
well. Like a few major ones. So let's go back to 2008. And you said 2008. So 2018 was really something that I did to myself rather than, and there was outside influences, but I chose to go down the rabbit hole. But the economically 2008, 2009, 10, I'd been in the industry for already quite some time. I was fairly successful at it in my head. I hadn't been, I wasn't the number one guy in the city. And this is in new homes I'm talking right now. So I'm not
Mhm.
talking
Mhm.
about but it applies to anything.
Right.
And so I wasn't the number one guy in the city, but I was making really good money. I was doing 200, making 250. We had a fantastic year, 2006, 7. I think I flipped a bunch of houses. I made almost 800 that year.
Wow.
And, so I was a boss and right in my head.
Yeah.
But there's always somebody bigger and better. And then 2008 comes and punches you in the face,
Sure
kicks
does.
you in the crotch like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I have 6 pending deals, and they all cancel in September when the market, when the Dow Jones just completely cratered.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what's going on. The next month, I have 0 sales. Like I have nothing, and that had never happened before.
And that will attest to that, because these are all uncontrollable situations that are happening around us, that it's like, what do I do now? Like, I can't control what's happening in the real estate industry and the mortgage industry and the slowdown that's happening, but how do I pull through? But your commitment is also to all the people that depend on you to be that great leader.
Right. And at this point, I'm working alone, except for my assistant.
Yeah.
But who depends on me is my family, and my why are my kids, and they've followed me unquestioning, to this point, and they deserve to have better, right? Like they deserve to not have to, watch me go through hell and then, take us all down and have to start over again and stuff. They don't deserve that. Right.
No,
because they didn't question it. They love me. They just think that,
they supported you along the way.
I have all the answers and stuff, and we don't always. So here's where the pivot came, and it came from, and this is really, really, really important. If you take away anything from this, it's always unexpected. It's always something you don't see coming. Okay. You may not see coming, and you might just pass it by, but this opportunity, whoever's helping you up there, if it's God or the universe or, Buddha or whatever, there's something out there. If you're asking for it, it will come to you, but you have to recognize it. That's your job. Yeah. You need to recognize that opportunity when it comes. And that opportunity came in, at this time, came from Mattamy Homes, believe it or not, was looking for the first salesperson that they needed to have. And they headhunted about a dozen agents. And I freaking laughed at them. I like literally sat down with a headhunter and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I just gave him all these reasons. And then I'm like, so by the way, how many sales have you guys done? And he goes, so it was like the conversation was over at that point as far as I'm like, so we're having coffee, right? And I'm like, so how many sales have you guys done? And they go, probably like 70. And I'm like, what? And I said, how long have you been open? They're like 30 days. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is in 2009. Everything's cratered. Yeah. And, it's kind of going, but it's not great. And so then I spent my next week going to their sales center, checking out all their stuff, looking at the price, looking at the whole thing. And then I was knocking on their doors going like, I want this. And so they hired me. And in the worst market ever, I went from doing about an average of 65 or 70, and who knows what I would have done that year, to doing 200, 250, 300 deals in a year. And so this relates to, let's fast forward to resale. 2014, I decide I'm going to make a move. I'm sick of doing new homes. I want something new. I get licensed. I'm starting over at 45 again. I don't have time to mess around. I'm 45. Yeah. And so what I did was I spent a year doing my own thing, resale, learning it, trying to figure it out. And this is what we do. We go out there and we just go try to figure out. I did 40, I think I did 47. Now you got to understand, I had years and years of new homes. I know lots of people. Right. I did 47 deals. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if I can duplicate this, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm getting lucky here. So I joined a team, gave 50% of my commission away for a year so that I could understand where the leads need to come from, the fastest way to do it, best presentations. I gave away, here I was the freaking rock star in the new home industry, like 6-time #1 guy in the city. And, had a small team of agents that we built up, that we took from making 40 grand a year as administrators. And I handpicked each one of them to 200,000 a year, within a couple of years. And then I'm starting all over again. And now I'm like, okay, I need a mentor and I need people that are willing to help me. Well, if I'm paying them 50% of my commission, they're going to, they're obviously going to mentor me. And I did really well for them and it was good for me. And after about a year, I went out and did my own thing. But then we hit a recession again, where everybody else, in Canada is crushing it. Alberta's just getting this.
It was the market.
I remember what you said before we get on. The F-bombs and stuff were about they're not coming out.
Okay.
And then we hit a recession. And by 2016, they had taxis lined up downtown while people are being walked out of from their jobs. I mean, it was
really sad time.
It was
very, very sad
so
time.
brutal. And people just don't know how bad it was. And then by 2018, so I've got that. I've got pharmaceuticals messing with my head. One of my best friends, and I didn't see it coming, takes his life over the weekend. He decides it's going to be a great idea at a weak moment to go hang himself and this is the shit I couldn't get out of my head, right? Like, why wasn't I there? How can stop it? But he had planned it for a while and it was so obvious when I looked back. And this is what really took me down. And then Brad's in the hospital dying of a brain bleed and he's the one comforting me. And the guy's dying anyways, it was a really tough time and I feel bad for people that go through it. If you can get through it, there's better times ahead. It only gets better. And
there was something that you had just said earlier on about taking administrators that you have or staff members that you have, taking them from a $40,000 salary to $200,000 a year. I look at it as entrepreneurs are responsible. Yes, you are firstly responsible for your family, your wife, your kids. However, there's so many other people that depend on you along the way as well.
Right.
And how many lives you've changed along the way and how many people you've impacted along the way. And then fast forward through your journey, you end up at eXp Realty. Now, I know, Brad, you, eXp Realty, you have your own community at eXp Realty. You also have your own organization. They say, you hear it all the time. There are companies or certain people that come into your life, and you've said it, certain situations, you just have to recognize them and they will change your life. And I would love for you to expand on that.
So 2018, I make the adjustment, I make the pivot, and I get back on that saddle and I start working with builders again. This is where I decide that I'm going to go. And Brad's working with small inner city builders. He's got, infill hub that he's doing. I start working with them, but I'm like, I hate this. They're too small. I want bigger numbers. So I pivoted into going after the larger builders. And that went from 18 deals that year. I made a phone call in November of 2018. Okay. So I'm just back on the saddle and I'm sitting there making calls. And I've told you this one before. I picked up the phone and it was somebody I knew, but I didn't think they really liked working with me before. I had all this shit in my head.
Yeah.
And it was the hardest phone call I ever made, but I knew I had to make it. And it changed everything for the course of our business. Okay. And so I went from 18 to 207 deals that year. And that just kept growing. So the reason I'm telling you that is I just want to make sure that people understand that it's the action you take and you never know where it's coming from once again. And then during this course, 2018, 2019, 2020, once in a while, I've got people talking to me and they're like, hey, I'm at EXP. You should, because we're targets, right? Like I wouldn't say targets, but we're, not me as much, Brad probably more, but when people understand how much business we're doing, of course, they want to talk to us about, what they're doing and get us on board. So I'm a nice guy. I listen, but I wasn't listening. Right.
Right.
And it wasn't being explained well, but had I listened a little better, it's on both parts, right? Had I listened and recognized there was an opportunity, then I could have jumped into this a couple of years before. So fast forward 8-9 times, I ignore this. And then I tell Brad one day in September 2019, I'm like, we need to look into this company. It keeps coming at me. And he says, I'm never leaving RE/MAX. And I said, yeah, neither am I. So why bother, right? But I was still really curious. Somebody texts him about it and he says, I'm never leaving RE/MAX ever, 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 ever. And then 3 weeks later, we moved to EXP. So what happened? We talked to the right people, and we spoke to, and there's never wrong people. I'm just saying we talked to somebody that finally got through to us. And these two people, I jumped on a Zoom. I had no idea what I was jumping on the Zoom for because Brad set it up. And he goes, you want to hop on? I'm talking to these guys in Texas tomorrow. I'm like, absolutely. But I had no idea what it was for. And they start talking about EXP. And I'm like, oh, good. Someone's going to explain this. So I never have to look at it again. That was what was going through my head. And 30 minutes later, I'm going, oh my God, if this is real, and I'm not saying it is, if this is real, I should have done this 2 years ago. And then I spent the next 5 days shredding it because I look at it from a business perspective and not from it feels good, right? Because if I did that, then I'd be going to every whim that I ever have, right? Or I'd be on meth or something. I don't know. And so I spent 5 days ripping it apart. And what I needed to know is who's successful, how they got there, what the company stands for, what the company's like, what the owner's like. Is this like everybody's got slogans? Oh, we're for the agents and stuff. Is it real? Are the guys that are running the show and the top guys and stuff, are they good people? And are they genuinely helping people? Do they have charities? Does the company make money? Does it have money in the bank? Does it have debt? This is all the stuff I'm looking for because by this time I'm 52. I don't have time to mess around. I cannot make another, big mistake and then take another 5 years to recover from it or whatever. Right. So we made the move. I was the last one out of about 8 or 10 of us to join last minute. And I told Brad and I said, 1 year, they have 1 year. And if it's not what I think it is, I'm going back to RE/MAX. And he said, okay, that's fair. Me too. And today I told somebody you couldn't pay me $5 million to leave EXP. So I'm already, fairly successful. Why would I want to be at EXP? And why would it be the best thing that really ever happened outside of my success? Maybe even better. And I'll tell you what that is, because I no longer have to worry if I take a risk or I take a chance and that business, and that doesn't work out and I lose some money on it or whatever, that I've lost my retirement and I've lost too much money. And so my why is my family, my friends. I've got lots of friends that don't make a ton of money. They're making average wages. I'm the guy that wants to be able to have the nice cottage somewhere where everybody can enjoy the lakefront, riverfront, and this is it's for them. It's not really for me. The competition is for me. I like the competition. So I would like to be.
Look at that. Your computer is like agreeing with you right there.
Yeah. I like the build. I like the journey. I like the chase. I love it. But EXP is changing lives, and it really is. And, you hear that from a lot of people at EXP. It's absolutely real. And it's changing average agents' lives every day. I just heard a very heartfelt video that Michael did, Valdez. Did you see that today? And he's talking about when he first got in. If you don't know who Michael Valdez is, He was instrumental in growing one of the largest real estate companies in the world, not EXP, to the heights that they're at right now. And then 4 years ago, he made a move to EXP. The guy's just he's an incredible, incredible man, like
Really
most of our top people at EXP. And he just remembers a comment that somebody said to him when he first started, and he didn't understand it and he was uncomfortable with it because they're like, thank you, EXP's changed my life. I have cancer. I wouldn't have been able to afford, like literally, I would not be here today if it wasn't for EXP. This is what she said, because of EXP taking care of her while she was going through her cancer. And that, who does that? What company does that? This is a real thing. This is no bullshit. So it changes lives. It's changing lives every day. And there's and I knew early on there was going to be spin-offs, and because once I understood it, once you see this, you can't unsee it. And once I understood it, I'm like, this is such an amazing idea. This is going to change real estate forever. This was a thought in my head.
It has.
And it is, and it has, and it will continue to. So now there's a few spin-offs from it. And I checked them out. And honestly, there's one out there that I thought, geez, this looks really good. And then I lifted the blanket and took a look under the sheets a little bit. And it's just not the same. And it's not the same because nobody has Nadia. Nobody's got Michael Valdez. No one's got Glenn Sanford, the CEO who shows up at every event, sits there and takes notes. It's mind-blowing. I've never seen that before. Nobody's got Brent Gove. No one's got Gene Frederick. The people who Brent Gove wrote a check for $6 million. Brent's an agent. He wrote a check for $6 million to put an event on in San Antonio last year. And he does this 2-3 times a year. And when he told me that was how much the check was, I was like, oh my God, can you imagine the risk they're taking? This is an agent helping agents. Nobody has that. So nobody is going to be able to copy this. No one's going to be able to be as good as this thing is. It's unbelievable. So honestly, if you're watching this, I invite you to talk to the person that, invited you to watch it, or talk to them, look into this deep, rip it apart, ask questions. It's financially irresponsible not to. I'm not being paid for this.
No. And myself, Mark, I say the same thing. Had I known, had I done this sooner, where would I be now? But the main thing is that it's never too late. Doing it now is better than tomorrow, and just really digging deep into how EXP can help you change your life and how it can help you build that retirement fund for yourself that can become that willable asset to a member of your family. It truly is life-changing, not only with money, but what I find is the hearts from leadership that is poured onto the agents, the love, the level of care that we are one family, that everybody stands beside everyone, the collaboration that happens because we are all owners of the company. We all care for the well-being of the company. That doesn't happen anywhere else. We are so invested in not only our future, but each other's future, because we all have kids that are coming into this as well. And we want them to succeed as much as we've succeeded. So, for me, when I hear it's life-changing, it truly is a life-changing experience. And it's something that no one will understand unless they are with us and they can feel it from inside.
Agreed. And thanks for filling in some blanks there.
Oh, of course.
There's just so much to, so much you want to tell somebody, and it's so hard to,
it's hard to put everything into one sentence because it's so much grander than that. But to end off our podcast, Mark, looking at leadership and your advice to the next generation, or anyone for that matter, that thinks that they can lead a pack, that thinks that they can lead an organization, what would you suggest? What would your advice be to them on how to handle it from beginning to end? There is never going to be an end, but how do they start doing that?
I think it's building a solid foundation for sure, like 100%. And if you think that it's going to be online lead generation or AI or throwing money at it, that's going to, allow you to cut corners in order to get there, it's not. You have to build that foundation, and that foundation is, number one, you have to be a good person. You've got to be a good person, and you've got to be doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
And so with the intention of helping people. So I mean, part of the reason I'm in real estate is to help people. So nothing's more satisfying than helping them find the house that's gonna, they're gonna build a family in and live in maybe for an entire, 2 or 3 generations. Like, you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
And being able to help them with that, but building that foundation and helping those agents in your organization or in your team, you're not doing them any favors if you're trying to cut corners. So you have to understand the psychology of sales. You have to, if for nothing else, to beat out that other agent that they're not going to have a good experience with.
Yeah.
Right? You need to be able to capture them, because we know you're going to treat them with the respect that they need to have, and you're going to treat them like they should be treated, and they'll have a good experience. So you have to be able to capture those clients. Even if they don't quite believe it at the beginning, that experience will happen, and you have to be able to teach your agents that, and all the other stuff, like the basics of sales and where the leads are going to come from, and the hard work and the grit and determination, the determination. Read it. There's a TED talk, and I can't remember the lady's name. It's on grit. And it's the number one thing that wins out of anything else when if somebody is looking at a group of people and who's going to be successful, grit is the number one thing. So if you're gritty, you can be successful. It doesn't have anything to do with education. You can get educated. So build that foundation and let all these other things help you save time, money, and build your business. But that foundation has to be built on the same thing as 50 years ago as it is today. So, and
never stop. No matter what obstacle comes in your way, just continue.
Never stop learning. And you know what? On your way, it's okay if you can't afford to, do a charity or give a little along the way. But when you do make it, you have to give to help for people that, are born in a country that there's just no way that they can get ahead or whatever. And the more you give, the more you get. So
absolutely.
That is my advice for the day.
Mark, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. I have such high level respect for you and the beautiful Karen. I know she is the quarterback of your team always, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Nadia.
Have a great day.
You too.